This is my TNA Destination X 2010 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view was live last night on pay-per-view. And I gotta say, this pay-per-view is going to be one of those pay-per-views that, mainly due to the main event and probably a lot of the stuff the second half of the show, some people are either going to say, this pay-per-view was pretty bad, or this pay-per-view was average. This pay-per-view was at least good overall. My opinion of this pay-per-view is that I would say mainly because of the ladder match and the Ultimate X match, I would say, and really there was nothing really terrible on this pay-per-view. There might have been a couple of terrible booking decisions as far as endings of matches, especially the main event, that I would say overall this is a pretty solid pay-per-view from TNA. It wasn't anything god-awful or anything like that. I would say it's kind of like in the middle of an average pay-per-view, almost teetering to a good pay-per-view from TNA, since there were a number of good things on this pay-per-view. Now, the first matchup was the ladder match for the #1 contendership for the X Division Championship. This was Bryan Kendricks versus Mason Red versus Kaz versus Daniels, and this was a very good match. This was a great match to start the show off with. The crowd was really into it. A lot of good back and forth action. A lot of good spots in this match. You saw a lot of great stuff from Mason Red in this match. They did one spot in this match where Daniels did a Asai moonsault onto Bryan Kendricks on a ladder that was placed from the ring apron to the guardrail. Then after that, Daniels got on top of the ladder, was celebrating, and then Red hit a springboard Hurricane Rana to Daniels, which was very good. And then the ending of the match was pretty good. I think the ending of the match probably they booked a little better as far as the outcome they thought was going to be booked out a little better than what it did. But I still think it worked out pretty decent. The end of the match saw Daniels and Bryan Kendricks. They were both on the ladders. There's two ladders placed up side by side. And then you saw Kaz outside the ring. He springboarded onto the ladders. And then he knocked Bryan Kendricks down. Then he suplexed Daniels, but at the same time while he suplexed Daniels, he was holding on to the ladders with his legs, and then he got back up. Then you saw Bryan Kendricks try to, chase back up there and grab the contract for the #1 contendership. He was knocked down again. Then Kaz ended up picking the victory up. So Kaz is the #1 contender for the X Division Championship, and a lot of good stuff in this match. A very good match to start the show off with. That's the one good thing about the show is you had a great opener that started the show with, which I think every wrestling show needs to have. That is a great opener. I think that's one thing they did succeed on this pay-per-view is have a great opener and something to really get the fans into the pay-per-view. And overall, I would give this match 3 3/4 stars. A very good opener and very good match to start the show off with. Then the next matchup was Daffney versus Tara for the Knockouts Championship. Now, this match I was looking forward to a lot, and I think it was a good match, but I was expecting a little more from it. I think these two could have done a little more with each other in there, but I think we'll be seeing another match with them two at TNA Lockdown, especially at the ending of the match. Now, even though Tara picked up the victory against Daffney after hitting the Widow's Peak and picked up the victory and retained the TNA Knockouts Championship, after the match you saw Daffney get the little tarantula thing that Tara brings to the ring, grabbed it, ran to the back, and Tara chased her. So obviously we're going to be seeing another match with them two, probably at TNA Lockdown, which I think them two in a cage match could do a lot of very good stuff. And it was pretty solid overall women's match. I'd give it 2.5 stars. Then the next matchup was Brutus Magnus versus Rob Terry for the Global Championship. Now, this wasn't really even a match. It was fairly short, probably a minute or two, if it even got that much time. So I'm not going to give this match a rating. This is one of those matches NA, no rating at all. And Rob Terry picks up the victory and retains the Global Heavyweight Championship after hitting the spine buster to Brutus Magnus. So at least it didn't drag on. That's the one plus with this. But it's one of those things that, this is something you could have done on Impact, not a pay-per-view. It was kind of a waste of, even though it was only two minutes of the pay-per-view, it was still a little waste of time right there, since it's something they could have just handled on TNA Impact. Then the next matchup was Generation Me versus Modus and Machine Guns, the Ultimate X match for the #1 contendership shot for the Tag Team Championships. Now, going in this pay-per-view, I think everyone was thinking this was going to be the match of the night, and it didn't deliver. It did deliver. This match was the match of the night. Excellent match right here. A lot of good stuff within this Ultimate X match. A lot of good spots. Sure, it was real spotty, but hey, that's what it's supposed to be. This type of match in ladder matches, stuff like that, it's supposed to be a little spotty. And they did a lot of good stuff in here. A lot of good back and forth stuff with both teams. These two teams have very good chemistry with each other, which I'm hoping that they have a tag team, a feud over the tag team championships sometime down the line. And surprisingly, in this match, I think everyone was going into this match saying that Generation Me is definitely going to be winning this match because TNA is not going to have the Motor Machine Guns pick up the victory in this match. But surprisingly, the Motor Machine Guns actually pick up the victory in this match, and they're the #1 contenders for the tag team championships. Now, the thing I'm hoping they do, because I don't want to see the Motor Machine Guns versus Matt Morgan and Hernandez at Lockdown. Hopefully they do something, maybe even tonight. Have Matt Morgan and Hernandez lose the tag titles to the Motor Machine Guns, then build up to the Young Bucks, a.k.a. Generation Me, taking on the Motor Machine Guns at Lockdown. Because I think those two could have a very good match, and not a very good match at Lockdown, a very good cage match. And plus, I want to see those two teams in a feud for the tag titles, because that would really be the one feud over the tag titles that could really ignite your tag division and make your tag division back into what it should be within TNA. That match right there, like I said, match of the night, 4 stars, very good match. If there's anything on this pay-per-view you watch, you need to see the Ultimate X match and you need to see the ladder match. Then the next matchup was Sean Waltman and Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash and Eric Young. This match was, the stipulation behind it was TNA contracts are gone from TNA for good. And I got to say, this match, even though it wasn't anything special, I got to give it a little credit. It wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. I was expecting a whole lot worse. You actually saw some decent work with Eric Young and Sean Waltman in the match. Scott Hall even did some decent stuff and worked pretty okay in the match. Kevin Nash, he really didn't do much. Now, obviously, the ending of the match, I think everyone already knew how predictable the ending was going to be. Obviously, Kevin Nash turns on Eric Young at some portion of the match, power bombs him. Then after that, Sean Waltman hits the X Factor. Then Scott Hall hits the Razor's Edge to Eric Young, and then they pick up the victory and they get their TNA contracts official. And then you got all of them standing in the ring. Eric Young was laid out in the middle of the ring. And then after that, they got spray paint and, spray paint the outline of his body in the ring. And they needed to stop doing all this old NWO played out stuff that was, stuff that was done, 12 or 13 years ago. They need to understand that stuff like this is not going to get people to tune into your product. And unfortunately, I think Eric Bischoff and Hogan think that doing those type of things are going to actually make people tune into your product. It's not. It's probably going to make people tune out of your product, not tune in. But like I said, the match was a little better than I was expecting. It wasn't terrible, so I give it 1.5 stars. It was at least watchable, I would say. Then the next matchup was Shannon Moore versus Doug Williams for the TNA X Division Championship. Now, this match was going along pretty good. Now, the ending of the match kind of hurt it a little bit, but then at least it made sense, and they kind of made Doug Williams kind of saved it at the end of the match after doing a promo. Now, it was going along pretty good, back and forth action. Shannon Moore did some pretty decent stuff in the match, and then out of nowhere, you saw Doug Williams get a brick and hit Shannon Moore with it while the referee wasn't looking, and then picks up the victory that way. So Doug Williams retains the X Division Championship. Then after the match, you see Shannon Moore. He's laid out in the ring. He's bloody to a pulp. And Doug Williams gets on the mic, and Doug Williams pretty much gets on the mic. The emphasis of his promo was that, the X Division, is known for all these circus acts and these, high flyers and stuff. Well, I'm going to change the face of the X Division. I want to turn it into, it meaning, that it's, wrestling based, technical based, catch can, and stuff like that. And a very good promo from him, so he kind of saved it from it. And he's a heel anyway, so it didn't really hurt it that they did the whole ending where he won the match using a brick. It was decent. Hopefully they don't do something where that becomes like a gimmick of his and he, starts using that every single match. If they do that, then it's going to be terrible. But it worked out at least okay in this match, and the promo post-match with Doug Williams kind of saved it a little bit as well. Overall, match-wise, I would give it probably about 2 1/4 stars, because there was pretty decent stuff in it, and Doug Williams did good stuff in it, and Shannon Moore as well for the time it was given. Then the next matchup was Matt Morgan and Hernandez versus Beer Money for the TNA World Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. Now, this match was actually a whole lot better than what I was expecting. I wasn't really expecting much from this match. You saw some good stuff with Hernandez in this match against the members of Beer Money. Matt Morgan did some decent stuff as well. And pretty much the way this match was, it was kind of booked where, Matt Morgan and Hernandez, are still tag team partners, but Matt Morgan kind of despises Hernandez, and there's a dissension between the ranks between those two, and pretty much Matt Morgan's like the guy that's saying I'm doing the best job. Hernandez, you're doing nothing more than trying to cost us the tag titles and cost us the match. That was pretty much the way it was. And then Hernandez picks up the victory after Robert Roode. He comes in the ring. He has a beer bottle, and he gets the beer, tries to spit it in Hernandez's face, but then it ends up spitting it in Matt Morgan's face. Then Hernandez picks the victory up, pins Robert Roode. Then post-match, you see Matt Morgan come in there. He hits the carbon footprint to Hernandez. So even though they're tag team champions, they they didn't break up at the end of the match, but they probably will do something on tonight's Impact. Probably maybe breaking them up completely and building up to a match where they'll have a match with each other at Lockdown, and maybe have the Motor City Machine Guns get the tag team titles tonight, because they need to get the tag team titles off of Matt Morgan and Hernandez. I do not want to see them in a tag title match at Lockdown, and even they're already building up them to breaking up already. So, and especially after him attacking Hernandez, it's not going to have them go into another pay-per-view as tag team champions. But this is TNA. They would do something like that. It wouldn't surprise me. So, match-wise, 2.5 stars. Pretty solid tag match. Then the next matchup was the Mr. Anderson versus Kurt Angle match. And this was a pretty good match between these two. I didn't really enjoy their match. They had it against all odds as much as some people did. I actually thought this match on this pay-per-view was a little better than that match, because I think the match at Against All Odds, I think they kind of dragged it out. It was a little slow-paced. This one, I think, was built up a little better, and, not only was it built up pretty good, the in-ring quality of the match I thought was better in this match as well. And during this match, you saw Mr. Anderson, you saw him try to get the Warrior medal and try to bust Kurt Angle open up again with it. Then Kurt Angle uses it on him, busts him open, then has him in the ankle lock, then wrenches it in, then Mr. Anderson taps out. 2 and 3/4 stars. Pretty overall good match between those two. I actually thought it was a whole lot better than their match they had the previous month. And after the match, Mr. Anderson gets on the mic. So since he got on the mic, they're obviously going to be continuing the feud. I don't know if they'll have a singles match at Lockdown, or they'll be on opposing sides in some type of TNA Lockdown match where it be Lethal Lockdown rules. Then the main event of the evening was for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. This was AJ Styles versus Abyss. Now, this match, I would say, match-wise, up until the ending, was going along pretty good. The ending of the match really hurt it. This was one of those things that some people might go as far as saying this match killed the pay-per-view. I'm not going to go that far and say it killed the pay-per-view or anything like that. Now, it did leave a bad taste in your mouth. After watching the main event and seeing the main event, it will leave a bad taste in your mouth after watching the pay-per-view. But still, I think there was enough other good stuff on this pay-per-view that kind of combated it a little bit. But it was kind of bad the way they booked it. Now, it was going along pretty good. Good back-and-forth action with AJ Styles and Abyss for about the first 10 minutes. Then, at some point, you saw Ric Flair get maced. He maced the referee, which didn't have no problem with. Then he got the belt in there for AJ. AJ used the belt on Abyss. Still not that bad, because AJ's a heel. It's okay if he uses heel tactics. But then it started getting a little overbooked. Then they had Hogan come out there with Hebner. Then Hebner came in there. Then you saw them, AJ Styles and Abyss, go back and forth for a little bit. Then you saw Abyss chokeslam AJ Styles through the ring, and that's the end of the match. So the match ends in no contest, no decision, no one wins the match. Pure WCW type ending of a pay-per-view right there. And then Hogan grabs the title belt, hands it to Abyss, pretty much symbolizing that, he thinks Abyss should be the World Heavyweight Champion. Then I think Hebner grabbed it away from him, and AJ Styles, obviously is still the World Heavyweight Champion, but a terrible way to end the pay-per-view right there. AJ Styles, was thrown through the ring, and then, after that, you saw Ric Flair come in there, not Ric Flair come in there, but Abyss pulled Ric Flair into the ring. He got thrown into the hole as well in the ring. Desmond Wolfe came out there as well, did the same thing. And just a terrible, overbooked ending for a match right there. I just didn't like it. Left a bad taste in your mouth, but overall I would give the match probably, as bad as I'm ragging on the match, I would give it at least 2.5 stars because I think they did do some good stuff in it, but the ending did hurt it. And not only that, ending a pay-per-view in a no contest, disqualification, or something like that is a terrible way to end your pay-per-view. Just isn't a good way to end your pay-per-view with a world title match, main event in your pay-per-view, and have it end in a no contest. It's just a terrible booking decision right there from TNA. And it's what was the point of it? You have AJ Styles taking on the Pope at Lockdown, so what was the point of having this match end in no contest? Then now it looks like, Abyss is still kind of a contender against AJ Styles, so are they going to throw Abyss in there and make it a triple threat or something? Hopefully they don't do that. Hopefully they just keep it the Pope and AJ Styles. But the main event will leave a bad taste in your mouth. That's the one thing about this pay-per-view. The main event hurt a little bit, but not completely, I would say. Like I said, I give the main event 2.5 stars just because I enjoyed some of the stuff in it. It was going along as a good match up until the overbooked ending of it and the no contest as far as the ending of the pay-per-view. Just a bad thing to end the pay-per-view. And just, it just looked like, nothing more than, Hogan and Flair trying to overshadow the match. That was pretty much what the match felt like after, the first probably 11 minutes of the match. It would look like, Flair and Hogan became the main focus point of the match, not the two actual guys that are competing within the match. So overall, I'd give this pay-per-view a 7 out of 10 because there were some good stuff on it. And it was nothing really terrible. Like I said, there were a few matches, the main event, maybe a few others, who could have had better endings to them. But overall, I would give the pay-per-view a 7 out of 10 because the ladder match was great, the Ultimate X match was great, and I got to give it to the X Division competitors that were in the Ultimate X match and the ladder match, because if it wasn't for the guys that were in the ladder match and the Ultimate X match, this pay-per-view would have been a whole lot worse than what it was. Those two matches right there pretty much saved this pay-per-view right there from turning in the category of ending in the category of being a terrible pay-per-view. And really nothing else was terrible on here. In the main event, I already said what I felt about that, but there was really nothing terrible on this pay-per-view. Even the, Kevin Nash and Eric Young versus Scott Hall and Waltman match, that was at least even watchable. And there was really nothing, god-awful on this pay-per-view. So, like I said, give this pay-per-view a 7 out of 10, but if you do check out this pay-per-view, be warned about the main event, because the main event will leave a sour taste in your mouth right there as far as the way they booked that. But you definitely need to see the Ultimate X match, and you need to see the ladder match as well. And even the women's match I liked between Daffney and Tara, even though I thought they probably could have had a better match. And I enjoyed the Kurt Angle and Mr. Anderson match as well. So, yeah, that's it for my TNA Destination X 2010 pay-per-view review. Peace. This is my TNA Destination X 2010 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view was live last night on pay-per-view. And I gotta say, this pay-per-view is going to be one of those pay-per-views that, mainly due to the main event and probably a lot of the stuff the second half of the show, some people are either going to say, this pay-per-view was pretty bad, or this pay-per-view was average. This pay-per-view was at least good overall. My opinion of this pay-per-view is that I would say mainly because of the ladder match and the Ultimate X match, I would say. And really, there was nothing really terrible on this pay-per-view. There might have been a couple of terrible booking decisions as far as endings of matches, especially the main event. That I would say overall, this is a pretty solid pay-per-view from TNA. It wasn't anything god-awful or anything like that, I would say. It's kind of like in the middle of an average pay-per-view, almost teetering to a good pay-per-view from TNA, since there were a number of good things on this pay-per-view. Now, the first matchup was the ladder match for the #1 contendership for the X Division Championship. This was Bryan Kendricks versus Mason Red versus Kaz versus Daniels, and this was a very good match. This was a great match to start the show off with. The crowd was really into it. A lot of good back and forth action. A lot of good spots in this match. You saw a lot of great stuff from Mason Red in this match. They did one spot in this match where Daniels did a Sai moonsault onto Bryan Kendricks on a ladder that was placed from the ring apron to the guardrail. Then after that, Daniels got on top of the ladder, was celebrating. Then Red hit a springboard Hurricane Rana to Daniels, which was very good. And then the ending of the match was pretty good. I think the ending of the match, probably they booked a little better as far as the outcome they thought was going to be booked out a little better than what it did. But I still think it worked out pretty decent. The end of the match saw Daniels and Bryan Kendricks. They were both on the ladders. There was 2 ladders placed up side by side. And then you saw Kaz outside the ring. He springboarded onto the ladders. And then he knocked